Welcome. So I want to do an account update because I realized that my sub count is starting to get pretty high. And first off, I want to say that I'm more than content with the number of subs I have right now, the amount of people who are following my channel. But I have realized that people really do listen to what I say, and I'm really honored that people take my thoughts and opinions on these things and actually do listen to them and consider them. But the thing I've noticed is there can be a problem in which sometimes some people can take what I say too serious. You know, I did my vids on my personal beliefs, and that is because I want you guys to know a little bit more about me. And where I'm getting at with this is that I'm the kind of person that looks at the overall actions of someone, and including myself. You know, and people, and when I say this, you know, I mean myself also. You know, we make mistakes. You know, we say things, we have bad days, we forget things. You know, and sometimes I'll say something or forget something, you know, to not say something or do something. And in the end, I feel like, you know, you have to look at a person's overall actions. You know, the overall impression of the time you've known them. You know, if, for example, they've always been cool-headed, you know, 90% of the time, and 10% of the time they're hot-headed. I just don't forget who someone, you know, has been. You see, the thing is, I don't mean to undermine anyone's hard work. Now, I understand hard work. I understand there's like a lifeline, you know, that people like Warren Thomas, Mr. Browse, you know, Strider, these guys are going out of the way for me, and I don't want to break their faith or trust in me, you know, by how you say, like, going behind their back and then, you know, tearing down their product and criticizing it. You know, it's just that I could sit here and I could say that everything is just great, you know, kind of stick to the book, you know, and just say everything's perfect. There's no, you know, just kind of talk about the pros, but that's not what I set out to do. I say one thing critical, and I realize it can have impacts, both in business and you know, it can sway people to buy one brand over another brand, you know, and vice versa. In the end, I understand that all knives and gear and tools, they have a function they were made for, and they do have limits. You know, there's pros and cons, and it's all in the end what your personal preference is, like what you're looking for in that tool, you know, what performance you want. I'm just trying to help guide people to the knife that they, you know, would be most happy with if they made that purchase, not necessarily try to take people away from buying a certain brand or support only a certain company, you know. So now this kind of goes to today's video and test. Now, I'll suggest things that may go against warranty, but you see, the thing is, these are my knives, you know, and I enjoy them. You know, I like knives. I mean, I enjoy talking to customers. I enjoy learning from the knife makers. They're really cool people. I enjoy this experience. I can understand why some companies, for example, could be upset about it, because perhaps when I take their knife into a test, perhaps they're concerned that it's misrepresenting their product. You know, for me, I think the majority of people, and I'll agree with some other guys here, that they don't take it that serious. You know, it's an interesting hobby. They enjoy the knives. They enjoy collecting. You know, it's not that serious. But I understand for a company that it could have effects on the reputation or presentation of their product. But then where do you draw that line? I mean, if I for example take a Hinderer and I reprofile the edge, you know, and my Hinderer cuts better, and then someone buys it and it doesn't cut good, you know, then they think, oh man, you know what, then I'm lying. But then, for example, you know, I take a Hinderer and I take it to cut something, and a lot of people don't realize what I'm cutting, perhaps that edge angle wasn't meant for that, and they think a Hinderer sucks, you know. But if I could just reprofile it and it would be better, you know. So where does that line, you know, end? One of the main reasons why I like Strider is I feel that they're not afraid of that. Like they're not afraid to let me just kind of go at it, and which is why also I really respect Mr. Thomas and Jason Browse. Understand that as I break down these knives, a lot of these knives, I would put my life on my Vim crew. I put it in my emergency kits. You know, I always have it with me. It's just that there are limits, you know, to everything. So basically what we're talking about is just performance and representation, you know. And to me, when I customize these, which I'm going to get to, my two SMGs, and I switch parts out and do things that perhaps void the warranty, to me, you know, that's a testament to then the quality and precision and durability of these knives. You know, if you know, it could go both ways. You know, someone might say, you know, oh man, I don't want to have the warranty to fix my lockup and send it to Strider and have them fix it. But then, hey, I go and carbonize the lock, and now it doesn't have lock rock, and you know that could sway someone to say, you know what? Well, now maybe I'll get one because you know what? That's not a big deal then to have to fix. You know, that's no big deal because then that's not as bad as I thought. You know, I can fix on my own if I need to. You know, it's not that big of a deal. You know, it's kind of like Tuff was telling me that Mr. Reeve, you know, if you want to go and re-bead blast the Sebenza on your own, it's still under warranty. You can pretty much do anything except for touch the lock side. You know, I mean, of course, some things, you know, are an exception, but you know what I mean. So keep in mind that I'm representing my knives. This is my opinion, and these are my experiences. So there was something I noticed when I picked up my Warren Thomas Ryu and I started using it because I'm testing this knife. So first thing, I want to go over this, okay? The knives right here. Today we're not testing cutting performance. Okay, you see what I'm doing? I have to cover my tracks here. Okay. Today I'm not representing edge performance and how it cuts. Okay, because for example, this Warren Thomas knife is a carbide, tungsten carbide titanium knife, and it is dull because I've been cutting through everything I can to see how well it performs when dull. Okay. Next comes my Vim Crew Strider that I just got back from Tuff, and you can see here, this has been completely reprofiled. You know, I just got kind of tired of yeah, I want to try something different. Want to go for a little bit more of a slicer. You know, leaning more towards a little bit more of a slicing blade profile. So, you know, I went and shallowed and thinned the blade out. And I wanted to reset the bevel. This one is sharpened on a fine diamond, a little $10 Smith's fine diamond rod, and I stopped at that grit. Chose not to go any higher. Okay. Then the Hinderer is CTS XHP, and this one I've gotten to a really nice clean edge that's definitely paper slicing sharp. Okay. See. Okay, so the Hinderer has a really nice edge on it right now. Okay, so this one's going to definitely slice in the wood very easily. Now the purpose of this video though is to show this, and let's see if I can get this in camera. Okay, you see the lockup. We already covered this, but you know, I'll do it again just to show in this video. Okay, the Hinderer lockup, the lock bevel, you see the slope of it on the back of the blade tang. It doesn't have like a sudden curve downward on this side. Okay, so what happens is as you use it, it wears really well and lasts, but it can move inward with hard use, because as you really go hard on a folder and you cut downward on the folder, you know, there's always give, there's always tension, you know, little tolerances I can give. Titanium is soft and flexible, you know, the stop pin here, you know, between the pivot, the stop pin, I mean, it could be the stop pin moving, you know, in here, you know, and just allowing a little bit of give. Or it could be the handle, you know, the handles can kind of twist just ever so slightly to allow this blade to move and the lock to slide in further. But the point is this. You know, if I take this Hinderer and I go hard on it, okay, let's say I do this for a little while, okay, you can see it starts to move inward. See, it went further in. You know, we knew that from before, and that's good because then it doesn't fail. See, so I'm not saying that the Hinderer is bad. Now here's my Warren Thomas, you know, and here's the lockup, and it's like the Hinderer. The lock bevel is the same, doesn't have a sudden, very acute, I say, drop. Doesn't even look like there's much of a drop at all. And when I go hard on it, the lock bar goes in further and it can jam just like the Hinderer does. This one all the way. Look at that. See? So now, you know, let me explain that doesn't mean I don't like the Warren Thomas or the Hinderer. Doesn't mean that either of them are not good. In fact, my Warren Thomas is my favorite knife right now. It's my EDC, and I love this knife, you know. And even the Hinderer, you know, a Hinderer is great. That's just how that lock behaves. It lasts, but it can move inward when there's a lot of downward pressure, and you know, when you're cutting really hard, it can move inward because of the way the lock bevel is. That's the pros and cons. Okay, now, first little thing to note, Tough carbonized my S&G, and it no longer has lock rock. You can hear it though. It clicked out for a second, and then it stops. And you can see this is why now the S&G Lockup, for better or worse, some people don't like it because, you know, they say as it wears in and it wears out, it goes in and then it slides. When you put pressure, it can rattle. It can have up and down play, and it'll move the lock bar until like kind of, so it's all the way in there, right? Just worn out, and you push down on the blade tang and it moves out and it catches on the more flat portion of the lock bevel. Because you see the difference between the Strider and the other knives is the Strider has this really curved part on the lock bevel that curves down on this side. So, you know, I still use my Strider, and you know, and as I start using these new knives, you know, I noticed something when that happened. I noticed something about my old Strider S&G, which is as I go hard and I cut anything wood, you know, or do more like hard cutting tasks, correct? Okay. It never goes in all the way. It never jams. You know, I'm not talking about it sticking when it's brand new, but I'm talking about it ever jamming, like going in all the way, like on the Hinderer or my Warren Thomas, because of that sudden curve. I was tagged to tell what was my, if I had one folder for everything, it would still be an SMF Tonto with a 3/4 grind, because of that aspect that I just showed you. Because honestly, this is the only knife that I know that does that. I mean, people will complain that it has that lock rock, and bear in mind, carbonizing it is modifying it, and that avoids your Strider warranty. But I mean, this one is definitely voided the warranty. This is a blade and a handle. These all three of these parts came from 3 different knives, different sources. But the Lockup's solid, really rock solid. Like this one's rock solid. You know, and it's the same thing. Now, when you know you get sent to Strider and they fix it, you know, they put a little cap on this, and I've seen them, a little cap. You can tell it's like a piece of metal capped onto the stop pin, and it makes it lock up early. So basically, it makes the lock bar sit more on the flat portion of the lock bevel, and so it won't slide off of that slope. I'm going to show this in the drawing. I mentioned this in my Hinderer update, but I wanted to do a separate video to talk about this. The bottom line is representing the Warren Thomas or XM. It's a, you know, consistent slope. The lock bar touches it, but you know, the lock bar, if there's movement of the blade and it moves just a little bit, the lock bar can slide in further, but it lasts. On the Strider, it's got that curve, so it wears out that corner. It's going to first wear out the corner of the lock bar, you know, and so, you know, you know, I always say get one early lockup, but then eventually as it wears in, it starts to contact only this sudden curve, and so you can understand that this curve is not as, how you say, horizontal. It's more vertical. So of course it can easily slide off that curve. You know, slide off that curve until it starts contacting the more flat portion that's over here. So by putting a cap on the stop pin, it makes the lock bar lock up early and lock up over here on the flat portion, so it doesn't slide. But as they wear in, they slide on that part, which then you would have lock rock, rattle. And for me, I can say I don't care. I don't care if my blades are centered, because as the washers wear out, as tolerances give, that's not really relevant to me. And I don't care if it rattles that much. But that's me. Other people, they want their knife to lock up nice and how to say solid. And they want their lock to last. But like I said, trade-off, is that it can jam. The S&G, it'll never jam on you, or SMF. So, it really is kind of personal preference. I like both. Like I said, this is my favorite knife, and this is also one of my favorite knives. This Warren Thomas. There's no real good or bad here. What it is just they have different things in mind. And for me, I feel then that a Strider lockup is something very unique and noteworthy. That is a good thing, because if you start to decide to use your fuller to start cutting things that require a lot of downward force, you're going to soon notice that, hey, it never jams on you. But you start doing it with like a Hinderer or a Warren Thomas, and you're going to notice, hey, it does. But then, maybe you're carrying your S&G, and one day it starts to rattle or something, like that, because I need to maybe push the stock bar more in. You'll get a little rattle. But you know what? That's kind of the pros and cons. Neither are good or bad, just different purposes. So the point of this video for me is just to say that I do think a Strider lockup is impressive. I don't know any other knife like it, and that's definitely one of the pros about that lockup. For all of its issues that people have, that opinion out there of it, that is something perhaps I didn't realize, and I realize as of today that just now, after getting my Warren Thomas and just kind of noticing a pattern forming, that is a unique feature that I like. So just bear in mind what I'm telling you today is just what I know as of right now today, and that could change tomorrow. But if I say anything wrong, go ahead, correct me. But this is just what I noticed, and I want to share it with you guys. Okay, so thank you.